Hello and welcome back to the Solo RolePlayers Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and today on the show, I'm thrilled to bring you another creator in the community, a creator, a guide, a leader of knowledge, perhaps, Mr. Mike Shea from Flourish, the lazy dungeon master himself. Welcome to the Solo RolePlayers Podcast.
Thank you. I consider myself an enthusiast.
An enthusiast?
Yes.
Good. Well, I already have a bone to pick with you, actually.
Oh, no, let's go.
About, you claim to be a lazy dungeon master, but you appear to be doing an awful lot in the RPG space. I don't know if I could call that lazy. I
consider myself a lazy dungeon master,
but
I work very hard to help other people be lazy.
Wonderful. That really clears it up.
That's the difference right there. Yeah.
Fantastic. I want to hear all about what you do to help people be lazy dungeon masters. But first, I like to start off with just a bit of an introduction as how you even got into the hobby in the first place. There's generally a story there. So what's yours?
Sure. So I got started back in the 80s, mid-late 80s, playing the Gold Box SSI D&D computer games. Mm-hmm. So Pool of Radiance was the first one. Curse of the Azure Bonds was the second one. And there were, I think, a couple other Streams of Silver and something else. And so I was playing them by myself. And that was I think it was first edition. They were first edition rules. And I looked at them and didn't understand what the hell was going on. I'm like, why are armor classes going down? But that's making it harder for me to be hit. I didn't understand. So this was right around the time second edition D&D was the most recent version. So I went out to a local game shop and bought the second edition Player's Handbook, which helped me understand the rules to the computer games I was playing.
Interesting.
But then I got into it enough that I was like, it'd be fun to play at an actual tabletop game. So I recruited a handful of friends of mine, and we played a Forgotten Realms campaign set in the Cormier region of the Forgotten Realms, where they battled the Zhentarim and faced Lord Manshun. And I had this really fun campaign that I think back now, and I'm still real fond of that campaign. I was like, I was a first-time GM, and I had all kinds of, I was a bad GM PC. I had my own character that I played who was so super overpowered, and there's all kinds of things that you do when you're 14.
I was going to ask what age are we talking about?
About 14 years old, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And that I would never do now. But I still think of the campaign, and I still had a lot of fun with the campaign and would go back and run it again, right? Like I think when the Zhentarim were like real bad guys and not just a mercenary company, and they had real big Forgotten Realms villains. I enjoyed that time, and a lot of fun things happened. So that's kind of how I got started playing RPGs, and I played on and off from then until probably about 2002 or 3, and around then I got a regular full-time group in where I live now, and have pretty much had a solid group since then. People kind of coming in and out. And when my wife and I moved to our current house, one of the very first things we did was get a D&D table.
Nice.
Like get a big dining room table that we knew we'd be primarily playing D&D on, and started a regular group. And we've now had a regular group going for about 19 years at that place. Yeah. So and that's been a weekly Wednesday group for 19 years. So we played through a lot of third edition, all of fourth edition, and then have been playing fifth edition, and then a bunch of other RPGs with that group. And then I've got 2 other groups too that I've been playing with. So like I'm playing an online game tonight with a couple that we've played with since like 2003, that time frame. They were in my original group here in the Washington DC area.
That's there's not that many hobbies I can think of that can really keep a group together and just coming back week after week for so long, engaging in the same story, the same activity. That's really a fantastic thing.
I have a friend who's been in my group for I think 17 years or something like that, and he's been playing. He now has a daughter that was newborn while he was still in this group, and she only knows a life where he goes and plays D&D on Wednesday nights. And his wife one time is like, you go over there every week to play. And he's like, he goes, do you ever get bored? Like, is it like Monopoly? Like you playing the same game every week? He's like, well, it changes very much. It changes every week. Like the story changes, our characters change, all kinds of things change, which is something that like somebody who's not inside the RPG industry might not grasp. It's like, it feels like you're going over to play Sorry.
Right.
every week, which, people do, right? Like there's bridge clubs that have been playing forever, and Mahjong and chess and everything else. So there's lots of games where people go and play regularly for years on end, but we're like, oh, this game completely changes, often.
And it is, like you say, quite difficult to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it.
Yeah, until you show them. Yeah, like I ran a quick D&D game for my in-laws. I think they had played once before. It was a long time ago, and I doubt they remember. And we used the new D&D starter set and played an hour, right? We played like an hour-long scenario, and then they're like, okay, this is what it's like. We're like, okay, we're in the mind of our characters, and they had no idea what we were doing, and we guided them along, and they had a good time. So they got to see a little bit of what it's like.
And that's cool. I mean, introducing people is and seeing them, it dawn on them.
This is what it is.
It's really cool too.
Do I talk to you like you, or are you the character, or what's going on? Right?
And seeing them feel
explain
it out.
That. Yeah.
I had a recent experience. I actually, I have almost entirely played solo. I have really no background in playing in a group, but I did start DMing a little group with Dragonbane actually recently, and two completely uninitiated people, which was really nice. It was low pressure for me, because they knew computer games. One of them knew computer games, a couple. And it was really fun just watching them start to figure out just that idea of, I can do anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I can think of anything,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Dragonbane, I was thinking about it because I just kind of got into Dragonbane. I've been running Dragonbane solo. And
we're going to come back to that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about Dragonbane when I was running my in-laws through D&D, and thinking like, man, I think Dragonbane would be easier because that whole roll under system is so much faster, right? Like you don't have to explain like what an ability modifier is and what a DC is. And like instead of two things, you have one thing, which is there's your score, roll under it. Roll that or under, right?
And not only that, but you have people coming in who already expect it to be difficult, right? Because it's this nerdy things. They're expecting it to be complex and difficult.
Well, the character sheets look like income tax forms.
Right.
So.
And then you put a plus or a minus next to another number, and they're like, well, okay, no, hang on, this is too much, But that was exactly my experience playing with them. I just said, find acrobatics.
Yeah.
That's your number.
Roll that or under. Yeah.
Roll under that.
It's perfect, yeah.
And the other thing I found really helpful, which I think I talked to someone about recently, but the way that pushing the roll system works with that, it kind of accidentally encourages or forces people, or I make them say, okay, why are you getting angry? Like, what are you doing that is making you angry that you're trying this again now, when you push that roll? Yeah. And that I found that really helped them straight away get into describing being in the mindset of the character.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, they get into the fiction. Yeah, anything you could do to draw them into the fiction.
Before talking all day about Dragonbane, at some point your enthusiasm turned into a business, which it does tend to happen. It's happened to me before as well. How did it happen for you?
So it happened right when 4th edition came out. So when 4th edition D&D came out, I think it was like 2012. I think it was right around 2011, 2012. And I was already we were into 3rd edition pretty heavily at that point. That was the time where I had regular groups. I was playing regularly. Like it was a big hobby of mine. And I had the opportunity, there was a convention called Winter Fantasy, which now takes place in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but did take place in the Washington, D.C. area. And my wife and I went there, and it was the first time, there were a couple things that happened at once. It was the first time they're showing actual 4th edition. So they announced it at Gen Con the previous year, and then showed it off for the first time at Winter Fantasy. And it was the first time you could actually sit and play 4th edition D&D. And it was also the first time where social media and camera phones were an actual thing. Like right around then, I think it was before the iPhone. No, iPhone had been around at that point. But I don't think Twitter was a thing yet. And I happened to have an iPhone, and I took pictures of character. Nobody said I couldn't. And so I took pictures of character sheets and other like stat sheets and anything I could look at. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna take a picture of that. And I set up a Tumblr blog. If you remember, Tumblr's still around, but there was I had other blogs that I'd been working on for a long time. So I've been writing on the web since there's been a web to write on, like, in the late 90s, mid late 90s. And I'd had a blog about EverQuest, the computer game EverQuest, and I had a blog about World of Warcraft, and I had a blog about home theater stuff, and I had a blog about fountain pens, and I kind of blogged about any hobby that I happen to have, and I've been writing forever, so it came easy to write for it. But I was like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to kind of show this game, and I was the only one who really could show everybody else in the world what 4th edition D&D looked like. And also shared my experiences with it. And that kind of blew up on a bunch of different RPG forums. And it's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, people are really interested in this. I was like, what if I start a blog? And again, I had experience running blogs before. What if I start a blog about this, right? What if I kind of take, the energy that people seem to be interested in 4th edition D&D, and I can be one of the few people writing specifically about 4th edition D&D. And I needed a name, and so I went through different powers that 4th edition had for their characters, and I tried Tide of Iron, and that domain was taken already. And I kept going down the list till I hit Sly Flourish, and that one worked. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just do that. And I wish I'd thought about it a little bit more, but whatever. Right?
Hey, it goes with your fountain pen blog.
It goes with the fountain pen thing, right? And now I got logos and everything, so it's too late. Yeah. But that's how I got the domain. And I just started writing a blog and decided that I had listened to a couple of other bloggers, big professional blogger types, who were like, finding the right balance of a dedicated focus and also enough of an audience that people care is kind of a good angle to have. Like, and the guy brought up, he's like, don't be the guy that writes about Star Wars. Don't be the guy that just writes about Jawas. Be the guy that writes about that one particular Jawa in that one particular scene, and be the go-to guy for that Jawa for the whole world, right? And I was like, okay, so I'm not going to just write about role-playing games. I'm not going to just write about game mastering. I'm going to write about 4th edition game mastering. I'm going to focus down on 4th edition game mastering. And there was like me and like 5 other bloggers, right, that were writing on this, but they also were covering bigger topics. And I was just, no, I'm just going to talk about game mastering. I'm not going to talk about player stuff. I'm not going to talk about character optimization. I'm not going to talk about the industry. I'm going to talk about GMing. And then I started to write. I got kind of inspired by a couple of self-helpy books that I liked, and said, I think I could take some of what I'm writing in the blog and write books about it. And I was also really interested in self-publishing and the kind of Kindle markets and everything that was going on. And I said, okay, I'm going to write a couple of small books. So I wrote one called Sly Flourish's Dungeon Master Tips, and then I wrote another one called Running Epic Tier Games, and then the third book was The Lazy Dungeon Master, and that was right around the end of 4th edition, and when 5th edition D&D was D&D Next, and when the D&D Next playtest started happening. And so Lazy Dungeon Master hit right at this point where a lot of people were tired of 4th edition. A new version of D&D hadn't yet come out yet. A bunch of other RPGs are kind of on the way. And I could write a more system agnostic book about game mastering. That I also was really big into, like, I want to talk to other game masters. I want to survey game masters. I want data, right? I don't want to just, me and my dumb ideas. I want to know that the stuff I'm talking about, I'm collecting the experiences of, thousands of game masters to kind of focus down on, like, what are the things that help in prep and what don't. And that sort of led to the original Lazy Dungeon Master, and that one sold pretty well. And then, it grew from there, right? Yeah. More books and still pivoting over to 5e and everything like that.
Still kind of your flagship book product, right?
Yeah. So the first one was, popular. And then I think it was a couple of years, it was a few years later, I said, the problem is I'm not even following the process in that book anymore. I should write another one. And I wrote Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And I was very worried about writing it because I'm like, the original is selling well. Why would I write a book that's going to eat the one that is the best-selling book? But I'm glad I did. And the big reason why is, like, I feel like I've got a lot more to say. So I want to write that. And Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master ended up being like 10 times more popular than the original Lazy Dungeon Master book. So that one really picked up. And then, that one's still in print, and it's still, it's still the number one seller.
Do you feel like that is your core work still?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And for those who don't know it, what is Return of the, well, what was the Lazy Dungeon Master? Or if it's more pertinent to say, what is the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master?
Sure. So, I mean, there has one core concept, which is there's a point where the less prep you do, the better your game is. And it's not zero. Or for some people it is zero. For some people it's like literally I don't prep anything. I just go in and wing the whole game and it's great. And like that's fantastic, but that's not most people. Yeah. But a lot of the anxiety that comes from RPGs is over prep, too much prep, or prepping the wrong and when I say the wrong things, I mean the wrong things for individuals, not overall. There's no, if you think your prep is good, then it's good. You don't need anyone else's permission to tell you that your prep is the right kind of prep. Yeah. But there's lots of people who are like, wow, I prepped all this stuff and then my players took a left turn and then didn't use any of it. Or I spent a ton of time on this stuff and nobody cares, right? Or I forced them down a path, right? I had this very clear vision in my mind about the way this game is going to go, and damn it, they're going that way no matter what, right? I'm going to force them down that path, and then the players are frustrated, and the game master's frustrated that the players are frustrated, and then it kind of, and it's a common joke, right? Like that, there's memes about how people do a ton of prep that then players throw away. So the concept of Return to the Lazy Dungeon, both books, the core idea is, how do you prepare to allow the game the freedom to flow in many directions when you're running it? Yeah. And the core concept of return. So Lazy Dungeon Master had 3 steps. Turned out like that wasn't enough. Right? There's really more that you need. And like there's more that I needed. And so Return focuses on 8 steps to game prep. And let's see if I can rattle them off the top of my head. Before
I lose the thread a little bit, why do you think people feel like they need to prep a lot? Because to me that feels like the actual problem. They feel like they have to. Why is that a problem?
I think there's a few reasons, but probably the biggest one is like, creative anxiety, that we are going to be sitting in front of our friends dreaming up crazy stuff, and that is inherently scary. Right? I think there's always this feeling of like, are we going to make a fool out of ourselves? Are we going to say something dumb? Are the people going to laugh at us? Right? Like, there's just a general creative anxiety that I think we all feel. I still feel it. I feel it before every game, right? I've run thousands of games at this point, and I feel it before. I got a game tonight, and I feel it right now, right? Where it's like, oh, I got to make sure this is a good one, right? I don't want to screw up.
I think hearing that from you helps people, though.
I hope, yeah, right. And I share it a lot, and it's kind of a common thread when I write about it on my blog often, that, there's this general anxiety. And I think having some kind of framework, whatever it is a help. That yes, I feel this anxiety, but if I follow my steps, I'll be okay, right? Yeah. And if we know, I offer 8 steps, but like, it kind of doesn't matter what the steps are as long as they work for you. Yeah. So if you've got your own steps that you walk through and say, when I follow these steps and then I run my game runs well, and I'm happy, and they're happy, and I'm able to accomplish that. Then having that framework can kind of break us out of the anxiety of, oh my God, what am I going to do creating this, incredible world with all this stuff that's going to be engaging and interesting. And also remember that I got players around the table and they've got their drives and motivations and their histories, and it's so easy to get sort of wound up around that. And I think what happens is when you don't have a structure, you're like, I have to prepare for everything. And so people prep and prep and prep, and they will put a lot of time into things. And I did, like 3rd edition. I remember I joke about this, but I spent a Saturday making a boss monster, and they killed it in like 30 seconds, right? and it was, 3rd edition monster design was not exactly super great. But I like, that was a moment. I don't remember thinking about it then, but I remember thinking back on it now, like, wow, I could have reskinned anything, and it would have been fine. Yeah. Right. They wouldn't care. And like literally before this show, I was working on prep for my game tonight, and I have a boss monster in that one. This is their high level, right? They're 14th level characters. They're facing a demon prince. And I'm like, I don't even want to, there is stat blocks with the demon prince already, but I don't really like them. And I like whipped up my Forge of Foes stats. I wrote a book with two partners of mine called Forge of Foes, and we have like a 1-line stat block for any CR. And I just like, give me a CR 24, right? And I have like, here are the hit points, here's the AC, here's the damage that they do, here's their attack bonus. And I added like 3 little keywords on the end, which are enough for me to be able to improvise abilities that it's got, you know? And that's all I need, right? And literally, that probably took me under a minute, right? To build pretty much from scratch a CR 24 boss monster. Yeah. Right. And a lot of that comes because I've run a lot of boss monsters in my day. And I know, like, if I say beguiling gaze, spoiler, I know what that means, right? I don't have to explain to anybody else what the hell a beguiling gaze is and why mine is different than most beguiling gazes, because I already have a thing in mind where it's like, I know how that's going to work, right? That beguiling, I have a very particular way that I can beguile characters that doesn't steal their agency, but also shows them what a beguiling gaze can do. Yeah. So, I can kind of whip that out. But yeah, I mean, that core of like, where do people, why do people feel that way? I think the 2 things are the general pressure of creative anxiety that we all kind of feel, and that generally the kind of games we're playing tend not to have a prep structure. And having any kind of structure that can work for you, and then ideally fits within a certain amount of time, and gives you what you need. And and this is why I focused on the ones that I focus on, help you prep to improvise at the table, give you the things that you need so that the game can go in lots of directions, but you're ready to drop things in place when they go.
Yeah.
That's really the core of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Yeah.
And can you rattle off the 8 steps?
Let's try. So review the characters. Right? Number one, make sure that you have the characters in mind so that you can do the rest of it. Outline your potential scenes, remembering that those scenes may not occur in the order that you're doing them or may not occur at all, but you at least have a general handle on what you've got. Define secrets and clues. Secrets and clues are sort of the main reason why I wrote a whole new book, was this idea of like, hey, what if you have 10 things that the characters could learn in the next game, but you don't define where they learn them? And that way you can move these secrets around depending on where they go and what they do. Depending on what NPCs they talk to could change which secrets they learn or how they learn it or what kind of, you can shift the secret. But that way you've got these 10 specific things the characters can learn about in any way that makes sense. Mosaics on walls, intelligent swords telling them things, NPCs are talking about things they overhear from monsters and things like that. So let's see, it was, oh God, I forgot one already. See, I already screwed up. So, the strong start, right? Strong start, you do your characters, then you do your strong start. Where's the game going to begin, right? Because the only part of the game you can control is the beginning of the game. Where is it going to start, and what's going to draw? What event am I going to put in here that will draw the players into the world, right? So, characters, strong start, scenes, secrets and clues, fantastic locations, NPCs, monsters, and treasure. Mm-hmm. Those are the 8 steps. And each of them are kind of abstracted from one another. You'll notice that like locations, scenes, and monsters are not all piled together into encounters, which is kind of typical, right? Typical is you have encounters or you have scenes. The scenes take place somewhere. They have some kind of inhabitants, and they have some kind of event going on. Mm-hmm. And what I propose is maybe the inhabitants are different depending on the situation. Maybe the situation has changed because of things the characters have done. So if you separate them out rather than piling them together, you have the opportunity to move them about and build scenes as they occur during the game rather than saying, no, scene 3's got to happen, right? Like this scene. Now, sometimes they do anyway, right? Like in my boss fight, I know where he's going to be and I know what the situation is. So that's one where really separating the boss with the location and the scene don't make a lot of sense anyway, because he's only going to be there. I know they're going that way. And I know what's happening in that chamber where it's going on. Yeah. But many times you don't, right? And so if you have a dungeon crawl, and like for example in my game tonight, they're crawling through 14th level, but they're crawling through this abyssal dungeon, and I have a lot of locations that I listed out just to be like, I don't know what direction they're going to head in when they go in here. So I have separate secrets from locations, from monsters, and then I can build the scenes as they go depending on what direction they choose. So there's a lot of character agency, a lot of player agency about what they want to do and where they want to go, but I've got enough material to pave the path in front of them during the game. Yeah. And that's really kind of the crux of the 8 steps and the crux of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Yeah.
I will come back to Lazy Dungeon Master for a specific reason a bit later. But the reason that I reached out to see if you could come on the show is it was actually one of our patrons, Modest Lime, shouted out in the Discord and said, hey, check this out, new episode from Sly Flourish, and he's talking about solo stuff. Yeah. And so I immediately jumped on and listened to that episode, which I would have anyway in the coming days, but sure. I listened to most of your episodes apart from the D&D specific stuff because I've never really played D&D.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And had a listen to it, and it was really, really interesting to hear your perspective going in and playing Dragonbane solo. Now, you did have some awareness before Dragonbane. I've heard you mention Starforged and Ironsworn.
Yep, Ironsworn. Yeah, 1,000-Year Vampire.
1,000-Year Vampire. Yep. Mm-hmm. But it was really interesting to hear you talk about your experience actually intentionally playing Dragonbane solo with the solo-specific rules that they had. Yeah. I mean, you've said that on your show, but now that it's been a little while since you've done that, has any of that stuck around with you? How does that feel for you now?
So, I mean, I knew when I had played some, I think my wife and I were on vacation and I brought Ironsworn with me. This is a few years ago. And I just thought I kind of got hooked into it and I was like, oh, Ironsworn sounds really cool. I should play it. And I played like my own few sessions of Ironsworn. And immediately it was like, wow, this is building new neural pathways in my head for improvising stuff. And I was like, this is super valuable for game masters to just let their minds go free and build these stories. And Sean Tompkin, who I think also did the solo rules, if I have it right, he did the solo rules for Dragonbane. So like he in particular had this way of building lists that inspired your own imagination to fill in the blanks of the story as you go. And that's exactly like what a game master does when they're improvising at a table full of other players too. Yeah. So I was like, this is just beyond being fun, right? And it, as you know, right, it's just fun to go through the process of the imaginative process of solo RPGs. It's also really good GM cross-training, right? And then that idea of like, we don't have a lot of ways, and I've now brought it up, even before recently talking about Dragonbane, a lot of times when people are like, hey, I've got extra time and I'd like to spend it on something that's going to improve my game mastering, what could I do? And it's like, well, if you can't run games, which obviously like that, the more you run games, the better it gets. But if you're on your own, solo RPGs is a great way, and it's super fun, right? Yeah. It's super fun to play, and it's a great way to really spark your imagination in creative ways. And that I definitely found. I think I've run a couple of other sessions of Dragonbane solo since I recorded that, and have been having a lot of fun. And that has served three purposes, really. One, really fun to do, like a good way to get my RPG fix when I'm not running a game normally. Two, helping me cross-train and GMing, like get creative juices going. And three, teaching me Dragonbane. And I wanted to run Dragonbane for my home group as soon as we're done with our current campaign. So this is a way for me to get more experience about things and realize like, so this is sort of how skills work, and that there are... In Dragonbane, it's tricky because you do really want to think about how you're going to be using the skills that you have before you just start moving your points around. And it told me something up front, which is like, when I play with my group, I'm going to tell them like, look, after the first session, you can move around points, right? Like, you're going to realize you put them in the wrong place. Yeah. And when you do...
For a new game, that's...
For a new game, right. So respecing is fine, right? Yeah. Like, you can't respect during a game, and you can't go outside the bounds, but, I think it's perfectly fine to not punish people for not understanding how valuable the dodge skill is, right? Or how important the health, some of the health and healing ones are to get you and your friends back on their feet if you're not. That was when I learned about soloing, right? It was like I built a new character in Dragonbane and didn't have a lot. I don't remember the skill offhand, but there's one particular skill that in solo Dragonbane you can roll to kind of get yourself back on your feet if you get knocked out. And mine sucked. Yeah. And it was like, well, that's not going to help. Like, my guy's just going to die. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to go back and respec that and probably give him more in that. I want to have like a 14 or 15 in that. That might be instead important. Of like a 8, right? Yeah. Or 2 or whatever I had, because this is your way to get back on your feet when you get dropped. Yeah. So yeah, those are all my kind of experiences with it. Yeah. And just really enjoyed it.
From my experience with people that I talk to in the community as well, really great fun to do. Doing those neural pathways things, the creative thinking that it brings. I mean, for me, just seeing where my world goes and where my story goes based on ideas that I didn't have until I got 2 random words that put together, and then they pushed my story in a direction. Or I had an idea the story was going to go one way, and then I asked an oracle and it said nope. And I go, okay, well then, and then it goes another way. And that taking the control of the narrative writing out of your hands a little bit is a really satisfying experience to me. And people
it's magical.
It really is magical. It does feel like magic.
Yeah. And it's totally different than like any other experience, right? That like, I mean, I play a lot of video games. I watch a lot of TV shows and movies. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of comics. I play a lot of tabletop role-playing games. And there's nothing like that is a unique experience, right? Like, and yeah, it's interesting because there's another kind of unique experience in tabletop RPGs is the one-on-one game of playing with one GM and one player. And my wife and I have done that from time to time. And that feels very different than your standard kind of 4 or 5 player, 1 GM game. And yet it's also has like tremendous advantages of scheduling and pacing of the game and focus on the character and other aspects. And it also is the unique kind of magical experience. And both my wife and I remark like, wow, this is different, right? Like this is a different thing. Yeah. And yeah, that idea of like, there's no other kind of experience that's like that, and with solo RPGs of really, like I said, it felt magical to me.
And the Dragonbane way of doing it is only one way, And there's what happened to me in my Dragonbane was one of the first games I tried. I mean, background for you, I started soloing and RPGs actually, only a few years ago, because I wanted to play the Fallout RPG. I'm a big Fallout fan from the old games back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And didn't know it was a thing, saw on the internet, you can actually solo RPGs. I thought, oh, great. And just started doing it, and it turned into, it's almost like an audio drama now, where I play the game at the table and just record, 18 months ago, recorded my thoughts just playing it as I went, and now go back and write narrative script in between and voice it, and it's really fun, fun project, but separate. Yeah. The first game other than that I tried was Dragonbane with this system, the Alone in Deepfall Breach that it has, and immediately, because I'd been playing this bigger narrative thing with Mythic I was using, which you're familiar with as well, with Fallout. Something happened we were getting that captive orc from the first mission in Dragonbane or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. And then something happened. There was also a magical grimoire or something there. Yeah. And we got out with the orc, and then I thought, but what's this grimoire about? Right. And it wasn't in the Deepfall Breach stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave that. We're going north with this orc to go and find out what happened to the, and then it kicks off a whole other adventure.
My character got possessed by a demon and then had the demon inside of him the whole time. And the orc was like, "What have you done?" And I was like, I saved you and I saved your life. And he's like, you gave up your soul. Yeah. And so my character has a super dark edge because he was made a deal with a demon at the last minute. And the demon said, I'll take you over, but I'll save you from these cultists. So I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And these stories that wouldn't have happened. I know. Right. And it challenges you. And one of the many reasons I thought it would be interesting to talk to you is someone who gives advice for GMs. How much of that, I think, really transfers, and the mindset transfers into the solo player? Because the problem we have in the community that we see all the time is it is magical, it is wonderful, but it's really difficult to get started often because it is so hard to conceptualize, and people don't know the right way to do it. Yeah. And that's because there isn't one,
Right.
And
exactly. Right. Like no one cares. Right. Like that was I forget. I think it was in my first Dragonbane game, and I'm like, I think I just rolled the dice, and the boring answer was I get killed. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's boring. Like, how about I get captured instead? And now I got to figure out that. And then I was like, when there's no rule for that, I'm like, I don't care. Like, who's going to yell at me, right? No one cares.
Or
right?
wouldn't it be cool if some wolfman burst through the door and threw me over the shoulder and rescued me? And then who is this guy?
What are those fail forwards? Character. And that's what I mean, like where it kind of stretches your mind. Like, if you're in those circumstances and you're thinking about failing forward, well, failing forward ideas definitely translate into other, as a GMing skill too, right? Like learning about, they've rolled significantly terribly rolls over and over again. How can this make the story more interesting rather than they're screwed, right? Yeah. Like the TPK and they're done. Like what's the, and I've had it where like, I was prepared for failing forwards. Like they could TPK, and if they do, this is going to happen. And that's awesome. Yeah. And then they don't. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. Right? Like, they had this really great idea about pivoting the campaign, and it didn't work because they all survived. And then I used it for a one-shot game later, so it came out. But
right. Yeah, the ideas hang around, right?
Yeah,
like good songs.
Yeah.
So what piqued my interest when you were going through the 8 steps is I'm thinking about how us solo players can tweak that idea maybe to help yourself be a better solo player. I mean, practice is kind of the thing, and allowing yourself to try and fail and have bad experiences and then assess why did I not enjoy that? What do I enjoy more? Tailor the game more toward what you actually like, which is another one of the wonderful things about solo.
Yeah, right.
But those kinds of ideas of we are being both GM and player, and we do want to kind of keep those two brains interacting with each other, but also kind of separate them as well. And I'm working on a project where I'm looking at designing a procedure for the session 0 part, or the game master brain part of a solo session, like before you're actually sort of playing, and basically what you're talking about, what that prep is. How can I maybe, like you say, characters, number one. Okay, so what do my character or characters actually want? And remember that. Like when I rolled it back up at the beginning and they had this really interesting trinket, or motivation or something, what do my characters want? The second one was, where are we starting the scene, right?
Yeah, right.
Where are we starting the session?
Yeah.
Where did my last session end? In this session, I want to start somewhere where the action is already going and it's going to push the story into a new place, even if I have to jump forward in time from the last session, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so on and so forth. And maybe things like pulling out those treasure monster location places, maybe writing up little tables for it or, something like that.
Yeah.
Those kinds of ideas, I think, can be really helpful for us solo players from books like yours, which are, helping GMs with a low prep type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things when I saw the solo rules in Dragonbane, I liked them so much, and I was like, I really wish they were more easily available. That a problem is they're sort of buried in a starter set, and you're paying, I forget what it is, PDF, $30 to $50 for PDF and physical book. And I really wish that the person who made Mythic, I think, has some free stuff available.
Yeah.
That shows it off. But one of the things I really liked about the solo rules for Dragonbane is it kind of shows you what those strong starts could be. I think the scenarios in the Dragonbane solo rules are really good of here's what that intro is. Here's what's getting you into this place. And, I'd love to see more of that. And I think that, the guidelines talk about how to make your own, right? How to kind of make your own solo scenarios, which is pretty good. But I think there's even there's further that they could or we could go with that.
Absolutely.
Of what are those scenarios and what do they look like? And a lot of the sort of, I've been spending a lot of time talking about adventure models and quest models in RPGs. Mm-hmm. And I have one that I call the simplest quest model. And the simplest quest model is an NPC wants you to go somewhere and do something, right? And it seems super vague and basic. But it's actually, if you just answer those questions, you have a pretty good quest, right? The only question is why, right? Why are they doing this, and why do you want to do it? But when you answer those questions, and you can kind of take the rabbit hole of filling them down of the location, and you're okay, what's the location about, and what's the history of the location, and what are the things that are there? And I think for solo gaming, taking that kind of quest model and adding tables to it for each of those answers. And then even tailoring them around your character or the world that you're set in. I was talking about Forgotten Realms before. You could pick who are the big factions in my little Forgotten Realms story. I'm going to write a table of those, and then I'm going to roll on that table whenever something shows up, or it makes sense to drop a faction in to be oh crap, the Zhentarim are here. Yeah. Right. I got to worry about the mercenary, or they got to worry about the Zhentarim guys are in this here too. I think there's a lot of flavor that you can build tables to wrap things around. I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of table in, I think it's in the Tales of the Valiant Game Masters guide. And I have them too. I released some of their Creative Commons license of here are, I think 10 types of dungeons and 20 types of chambers that exist for those dungeons.
Yeah, I need this.
And that's a really easy way to okay, I can roll on the type of location that you're going to. And then when you go to the location, I could use a Dyson map and not define what the room is until I roll that. And then that tells me what the room is like. And then I could be now is there an inhabitant there? Yes. And are they tied to a faction? Maybe. And if they are, then I can roll on the faction list and be oh no, these are orcs, but they're orc mercenaries of the Zhentarim. Oh, what does that mean? So I would love to see that kind of expanded out more. I think Mythic does a fantastic job of giving lots, but it's got a lot of stuff going on too. Yeah. Right? It's a big old hairy book. It'd be interesting to how to streamline that down in the same way that I think Dragonbane did. Because that's the nice thing about the Dragonbane solo rules is the booklet's 8 pages, right? It's not long, and it really covers a lot. But I would really love to see that further expanded. And my point being that I think the same kind of tips and tools and tricks that I'm using and talking about for the 8 steps can be used in solo RPGs. Yeah. In filling in those details, the secrets and clues being kind of an example. Can you dynamically generate secrets and clues, right? Where you don't define what the secret and clue is,
mysteries are tricky still. Yeah, there is a way there somewhere.
Yeah, you have tables that at least tie NPCs to factions, to, behaviors. You could use some of those OSR ideas of hostility rolls. Is this a hostile entity or a non-hostile entity? What does that mean? And so I think there are ways to kind of use procedure, random events to kind of, or random rolls to kind of build that
absolutely.
out. Yeah.
You know, and I'd be interested if there is more of this, because I mean, you just have a breadth of experience with material in general in RPG that I don't yet have. Although I've now played quite a lot. I did. I was doing a preview of the new Coriolis game. If you're familiar with that, The Great Dark. It's called.
I know it. I haven't read it. Yeah.
Importantly, it has rules by Sean Tompkin again at the end. For quite significant solo rules and sort of a new take on like he's always kind of changing sort of angles a bit.
Cool.
Which is really nice to see. He's certainly not just rehashing the same stuff all the time.
Right.
One thing that really stood out to me in that I thought was incredibly useful for NPC interaction with solo, and I wonder if there are more tools that you're familiar that do this same kind of thing, which could be also useful for a normal DM, is it has like 4 tiers of traits of the NPC. It might say what is immediately obvious, like what they look like, and then their demeanor. And when you meet them, you only roll the first 2.
Right.
You know, and then the next one is their like their shallow motivation and then their deep motivation or something like that. I can't remember what it is. But until you maybe interact with them and learn a bit more and start filling in their story and maybe pass some checks or, you know, am I able to see? Are they lying? You know, you don't actually get to roll on that. What their actual motivation is, you know,
until you figure it out.
You figure it out, and
that's
really
interesting.
It's so simple and so nice, and I hadn't seen that before, and I don't know if it's a new thing or whether there are other tools that.
So I haven't seen anything on the solo side,
but even in like for on the fly GMing, you know.
Yeah, so there's lots of, and I can't remember. So I have a document. I'll link it to you. Cool. And called the Lazy GM Resource Document. And it is a lot of the stuff that I had written in previous books, including stuff from Return. I had a book called The Lazy DM's Workbook that had a lot of tables and a lot of kind of tools in it. And then another one called The Lazy DM's Companion that also had lots of like scenario-based tables in it. And I released probably 70% of it into the Creative Commons and put it in this one big resource document. It's one of the most popular documents of mine, one of the most popular pages on the site, and I'm happy that it is. And it's got like NPC. I don't know offhand if it's got all those, but it's got NPC generators in there. And I think it has sort of like an internal motivation for an NPC. I had not thought of the idea of like you don't roll it until after you've gotten to a certain point. That's a pretty powerful idea, right?
Especially
it's like
for solo, yeah.
If you roll it, right, exactly, for soloing. But even it's kind of interesting even for GMing with a group of like, what if I wait until they've gotten to the point where they're really with they've already tied well to an NPC and then I roll that motivation. Does that change things, right? Like, and there's a question of like, how valuable is it for a GM to not know that ahead of time? Versus knowing it later, but it could be really interesting. Yeah,
it's valuable for the GM that you talked about when she or he goes in with zero prep and are clearly the kind of people who enjoy the spontaneity of it and enjoy the impromptu nature of it. You know, like for a person like that, that's
Yeah, it's like I have a character, I have an NPC the characters have been dealing with now for multiple years and actual real world years for my Wednesday game, which is closing in the end. I think they're 19th level, it's 18th level now, and they're going to be 20th by the end. And they've got an NPC who's been giving them stuff. And it'd be really interesting to roll a motivation now and see like...
Actually...
although NPC betrayal is a big problem. So I'd have to be careful about what that is. Like having a secret is one thing. Having a secret that the players don't like.
Yeah, they're actually
at this point in the story. Oh, right. That's the worst, right? And like I'd be kicked out of the house if I dropped in, an NPC who turned out all this time to be betraying them.
But that idea is one of the really powerful things in solo where you have an oracle to ask. You don't know.
Right.
And you do that in GMing. Like I've been learning and started playing now solo Dolmenwood, which is really phenomenal.
Are there official Dolmenwood solo rules?
No, not
okay, so you're I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got me really excited because Dolmenwood's on the way, apparently. Like it's shipping. Yeah, physical books are shipping.
In Europe, we got it a little earlier than you guys, I think.
Yeah, I don't have it yet.
I've had it a couple of weeks.
And I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
It is a thing of beauty, it really is.
I've heard really good things about it, yeah.
And talking about the flavor, no, I'm not going to go into nerding out about Dolmenwood now.
Right.
What was I saying? Can you tell us, now that you've had a bit more of experience with solo and you have, you see some of the benefits more and the enjoyment of it, what of your tools would you recommend to us, the solo players, to check out?
I think, So again, I would point to that Lazy GM resource document because there's so many random tables in there. I think there's a lot of them that could help a solo player fill out categories. As far as like, products that I've made that I think would be useful, I think like the Lazy DM's Companion is piled with scenario tables where you can kind of generate all kinds of scenarios based on things like, I built a lot of them around movie scenarios that I think work well for RPGs. Your Raiders of the Lost Ark scenario. You're hunting an artifact, and so is somebody else. What artifact are you hunting, and who else is going after it, right? Jaws. Yeah, there's a big monster out there. We're all trying to deal with it. And like, well, who's the monster, and who follows the monster, right? And who else is hunting the monster, and where's the monster lair? Lots of kind of fun questions that can come from a book like that. Something that I brought it up already, and it's something that I think a lot about, are faction lists, and something a little bit newer for me are domain lists. Mm-hmm. And for me, a faction list is highly tailored around your particular world. Even if you are running in a published setting, you still have factions that are more upfront than the other ones for the world that you have. And something that I recommend to game masters of all different for all different kinds of games is spending the time to make that list.
Yeah.
And then that you can use to flavor almost everything. Like you can flavor locations, you can flavor monuments, you can flavor magic items, you can flavor NPCs, you can flavor whole encounters, right? And that common problem of I rolled a bunch of random stuff that doesn't have any actual effect on the story goes away when you start rolling, say, oh, these aren't just ogres who have hijacked me along the road. These are ogres that are actual agents of the Red Wizards of Thay, right? Yeah. Like, oh, wow, now it's something interesting going on. Another one, and I talked about like Pantheon kind of thing. You can do it. The factions can also include Pantheons. Like, hey, I've got 20 gods and I'm going to roll. Now I've got a particular god. Like these are orcs who worship Rexor, right? Or whatever. But you can also do generic domains like, light and darkness and war and love and plague and death and, all the different sort of domains that the gods typically fall in. Yeah. That one, and it's something I'm almost certainly going to add in products in the future of like, hey, here's a domain list. And they're kind of divine domains, but they can also flavor things, right? Yeah. They can flavor encounters. And you could have some that are more goodly aligned and some that are more badly aligned. And that can also kind of swing like, oh, if I roll an encounter and we run into an orc band, but they are an orc band of like the Protector, like, oh, these are like orc paladins, right? Yeah. These are nice. Yeah, these are nice. These are good guys. They can help us, right? Yeah. Like, they're not going to attack us. They're here to, they're orcs of the Protector. So, they can steer the story in a way too. So I think like some of these, like I don't really have a name for them, but like almost meta tables. Like these are the adjectives that you add on to other things.
Yeah.
I find tremendously useful when I'm doing my prep for games with other players, and I think could equally work well in solo games because they can really tailor the stuff that you're running into while you're going through play.
And they help tie anything that ties characters in the world to the world and to the meaning and purpose of the world. And also, like your example with the orcs then can kind of challenge those tropes, especially when you so many fantasy games and fantasy tropes or whatever, challenge some of those tropes and stuff and make things more interesting. For the solo player and for the GM when you're sitting down and doing your prep, ideas like that you can roll on that you didn't think of before that pull your brain and your imagination in a certain direction is really, really so valuable and fun.
Yeah.
For both
sides.
There's
a technique I'd like to ask you about because you may have already kind of grabbed this technique. But I think it helps a lot, and I think it has more of an effect in solo play than I typically think of. Is like when you roll a random thing, it's pretty easy to look at your result and say, "Oh, that doesn't fit," and then either roll again or something else. But there's something to like just sit with it for a minute, right? Yeah. Like you think it on the surface, it doesn't make any sense. Just don't roll again yet. Think about it for 30 seconds and see if you can figure out a way. Is that a common kind of thing in solo RPGs?
It is, actually. And I think it goes, it's supported by the fact that it's solo. And a technique I use when doing that often is, I have no idea what that means. I'm going to go for a walk. and you just get up
Yeah.
and leave
Oh
the
my God,
house.
yeah. Yeah,
which
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
sure.
do with a table full of people.
Yeah,
You know?
right. Like I'm just gonna like
Yeah,
right. That's it.
you guys
Yeah.
know where the fridge is. I'll be back.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, I think, and it's something that I do employ probably most of the time, but I'm also okay with, I've been doing more when I feel like it should connect more to something. I will scan a list rather
Yeah.
than roll on it necessarily,
Sure.
especially if it's a big table.
Yeah.
And when something grabs my eye and says, oh, that could
Yeah.
mean that happens, and then that's a cool story, and that,
Yeah.
And so it's
I've done it
doing
where
both.
where I'll roll and I'll look at what it is, and it's like, oh, the one above it's really good. I'm going to pick that one instead, right? And so
Sure.
it's still kind of random, right? You sort of have a random window,
Right,
And you're
right,
moving the
right,
window
right.
like one of these three things
Yeah.
out of 20 or out of 100 or whatever. Those are the ones I'm going to pick.
You can give yourself a narrative stat and be allowed to move up that many spaces up.
Exactly, right. You get to roll a D20 and a D4, and the
Yeah.
D4 tells you how many up or down you're allowed to go. Yeah.
There you go. More dice, more mechanics,
Right.
always better.
Love to roll the math rocks.
Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Solo RolePlayers podcast today. I know most of my listeners listen to your show, or at least most of the listeners I talk to. But where can people find you and your work on the internet?
Sure. The best place is slyflourish.com. Right? It's the website
Easy.
I keep up, and everything. It has links to all of the other things that I do. I have a newsletter that one can sign up for free and get a weekly article from Sly Flourish sent to them directly. That includes also links to all of the other shows that I do and all of the specific subjects of the shows that I do. So if you don't want to, I don't expect everybody has to sit and listen to an hour, like you said, like, I like it except for the D&D stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I put bookmarks in all of them so that you could just skip to the part that's like, that one sounds interesting, I'm going to listen to that. So I in my newsletter, I have like links to all of the subjects so you can pick on whatever particular
Awesome.
subject you want to listen to. I have a Patreon also linked off of slyflourish.com where I throw lots of different things, including a tool set called the 5e Artisanal Database, which is a fully downloadable JavaScript-based app that can run in your browser without a web server that has piles of random generators in it. That I think it's focused on 5e. It's focused on 5e play, but many of the generators are not tied to 5e. Like lots of quest generators, NPCs, locations, monuments, all sorts of stuff that you can use to kind of generate stuff, and I think they would work quite well in solo RPGs.
Fantastic.
And then my bookstore, where also linked off of the website, where I sell Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. I have a source book called The City of Arches, which also would, I think, be a fantastic environment for one to run a solo game in. There's lots of really fun things to do in there, and other books as well, like the Lazy DM's Companion, which I think would be a really good tool for solo RPGs.
Fantastic. I will link all that in the show notes if you want to go and check out that. And until next time, until maybe we get you back on the show one day to do something else, we're trying out all sorts of new formats. We just launched season 2 of the show recently, and
That's
so
awesome.
we're trying out new formats. If you'd be interested, we may have you back for something. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
And we will indeed be having Mike back for something sooner than thought as he comes into the Patreon Celebrity Lounge in the Discord on Monday, the 24th of November. So if you want to find out more about that, come over to Patreon/Solo RolePlayers, join up there, come into the Discord, and come and ask Mike some questions for the day of Monday before we kick him out again back to his own very busy, lazy work. PJ out.